So I remember one time hearing, confidence is not always getting it right or always believing you're going to get it right. It's not being afraid to get it wrong. And so I like to apply that to dating and relationships by saying confidence isn't believing everyone will like you. It's not being afraid that they don't, and when they don't, not being afraid to walk away and not internalizing it and not carrying some negative perception because of it, but still believing in who you are, loving who you are, and knowing you deserve great things. And so as a woman, being a confident woman starts with, of course, having that self-esteem and belief in yourself, but there's other things that a confident woman should be doing, okay? Now, as I break these things down for you, if you're not doing one of these things, don't beat yourself up. Don't feel bad because you found yourself in an unhealthy situation because of not doing something on this list. Just take this video as a chance to become more aware, as a reminder, as confirmation, so that you can get back on the path or get on the path of being that confident woman God created you to be. Now, before we get into it, understand this. One of the things that's going to help you be the confident woman you need to be is healing, okay? Because the reality is that our lack of confidence, self-esteem, our lack of even awareness in certain situations, a lot of times stems from unresolved traumas and things we have not healed from, things that we've been hurt and disappointed by, and we have not found peace within ourselves about it. And that's why I think it's so important that we be willing to get help in that area. I'm a firm believer in getting therapy. My first experience with therapy was when I was in college. To make a long story short, because I don't want to put all my family business out there right now, but had an issue at that time with my father. He was alive back then. He's passed away since. And I had an emotional breakdown on the way to a class to take my final. And I told the teacher I missed the final. And he was like, well, listen, if you're saying it's because you had this emotional issue, whatever, you got to go to counseling. And if you do the counseling, I'll give you a redo on the final. And so I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'll just go in there, knock this out, no problem. I didn't take therapy seriously. This is like a very long time ago. So I went into that therapy session, and by the end of it, I was in tears. I was like, I had no clue how much I was holding on to and had not resolved. And this was back in college, and that really opened my eyes to therapy and getting assistance. And that's why I really want to thank BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. And so I truly recommend checking out BetterHelp because they can connect you with a licensed therapist who is trained to listen and give you helpful and unbiased advice. If you think you might benefit from therapy, consider BetterHelp. Click the link in the description or visit betterhelp.com/Stephan Speaks. I know starting therapy can be hard, and the right therapist for you may not be in your area. And some people find the face-to-face interaction of therapy uncomfortable. To get started, you go to BetterHelp and you can fill out a questionnaire to help assess your specific needs, and then you'll get matched with your therapist in most cases within 48 hours or less. Over 4 million people have used BetterHelp to start living a healthier, happier life. So start your journey today with BetterHelp. Click the link in the description or visit betterhelp.com/Stephan Speaks. Clicking that link helps support this channel, and it also gets you 10% off your first month of BetterHelp so you can connect with a therapist and see if it helps you. All right, so now let's get this going. And one of the big things that a confident woman does in a relationship is she does not lose herself in it, okay? So that, of course, starts with knowing yourself to begin with. And one of the unfortunate realities is that so many people are getting involved with other individuals without having at least some understanding or a strong enough understanding of self. And I know some people may feel like, well, it's through interacting with others that we can sometimes learn about ourselves. Okay, true. But that doesn't mean we have to be romantically involved with people in order to learn more about ourselves. All right. We can do that through friendships, acquaintances, work relationships, you name it. There's a lot of ways to achieve self-discovery, as well as just being willing to go deeper within ourselves. And we have to, what I really feel people have to do is it's not even learning who you are, it's accepting who you are. So many of us know different things about ourselves, but maybe we're too ashamed to accept it. Maybe we've been told that thing is not a good thing to embrace, whatever the case may be, or we don't know how to nurture that part of us. And so we reject it. And in rejecting it, we don't walk in our truth. We don't find our inner peace, and we don't present ourselves as who we really are. And unfortunately, when it comes to dating and relationships, if you don't do that, well, you can only suppress your true self for so long, or you can only be in denial of your true self for so long. At some point, it will come up. And when it does, and if you've gotten with someone who that's not the part of you that they knew of and they understood, or they would have even wanted to be with, well, this can cause a problem, huge problems. So you have to know who you are. Now, once you know who you are, yes, you have to make sure to not lose yourself in a relationship, because the reason why even someone who does know themselves loses themselves in the relationships is because that lack of confidence to stand strong in who you are and to trust that, listen, as I said in the beginning, confidence is not believing everyone will like you. It's being okay with people not liking you. And so that means I have to be me. And if you don't like who I am at my core, fine. We're not for each other. I'm not going to internalize that, dwell on it, beat myself up. No, I'm going to accept this is just not the right person. But I know there's someone who will align with this individual that I am. Now, understand this. Who you are and who you think you are sometimes can get a little tricky, okay? And one of the best ways to know the difference is who you are believing yourself to be, the healthy, best version of you. So I'm going to give one example, okay? There are some people out there who believe they're very sharp, rude, sometimes very negative tongue. The way they speak to people is just who they are. And it's like, no, that's not who you are. It's not healthy. You were not made mean. You were not made being so insensitive with the way you speak to people. That is a result of something, a result of things you've been through, a result of developing a mentality of basically forget everyone. I don't care about anyone's feelings. I care about how I feel and what I want to say. There's so many things that can play into that. Don't fool yourself into thinking that's who you are. All right? No, that part of you needs to improve. Okay? But back to the whole losing yourself, essentially in trying to accommodate others, in trying to win over a man or whoever, a lot of women will now sacrifice parts of themselves and change certain things that it's not even sustainable for you. And that's a problem, and that's a sign of a lack of confidence. So the confident woman does not lose herself. She stands true in who she is, and she understands that if this man he's not with it, then he just has to go and on to the next. All right, so now another thing a confident woman does in relationships is she sets healthy boundaries, okay? So again, there's a lot of women who struggle with setting boundaries out of the fear of pushing a man away, causing any conflict, all these different things, which again speaks to a lack of confidence. Because if setting a healthy boundary is going to cause a man to walk away from you, then that man is not for you. The man who's serious about you will respect your healthy boundaries. And of course, again, I'm going to say it all the time. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. You have to be mindful of how you deliver these things. You don't come into a relationship with a man and try to talk to him like you're his parent and he's your child and you're disciplining him and setting a boundary. Because a grown man is not going to be receptive to that, or is not going to be happy with you speaking to him in that way. And I always say, whenever someone feels attacked, they will naturally get defensive, man or woman. Even when they know the other person may even be right, it's the way that they're speaking to them that will cause them to want to push back, okay? Like, I don't want to get too deep into it, but I'm going to mention how, like, I'm not even going to say the person's name, but there was someone who used to be on the internet giving tons of advice to men, and I had women say to me multiple times that they agreed with him. But the way he spoke to people and the way he spoke to women, it wouldn't allow them to fully accept what was being said. All right. It created this blockage. And the reality is that can happen to anyone. All right. So, yes, be mindful of delivering the message, but you got to be willing to set the healthy boundary. Now, again, I think as a woman, what would be great for you to do before you even get into a relationship or a situation, and if you're already there, so be it, but it's to identify what your healthy boundaries are, to identify what is acceptable and not acceptable to you. Do not go into a relationship assuming this man will just know, or he should know because he's grown and he's an adult. And it's like, listen, I tell y'all all the time, common sense ain't always so common. People are raised differently. People have experienced different things, and this can create different perceptions and belief systems about how we navigate or show up in a relationship. Granted, there may be some things that tend to be universal, but you don't want to assume anything. Have a discussion about it. And yes, in establishing your boundaries, find out what his are. If he has any. He may not have any, okay? But you want to have that discussion. And again, I just have to remind you, do not let the fear of him walking away cause you to not have this talk. All right. So let's keep this going. And another big thing, I gotta stress that, big thing that confident women do in relationships is they don't accept dead-end relationships, okay? So let's first be clear about what a dead-end relationship is. A dead-end relationship is a relationship that is not going to go in the direction that you wish, or is not set up to provide you and pour into you what you truly need and desire out of a relationship, okay? So example could be, all right, you know you want marriage and children, but you're dealing with a man who can't even define the relationship and is telling you he doesn't believe in marriage. That's a dead-end relationship because it's not gonna go to where you need it to go, all right? Another example of a dead-end relationship is, all right, let's just say you're with a guy, you want marriage and kids, he wants marriage and kids. But this is a man who has shown you from the beginning he's not faithful, okay? And he's doing nothing to correct that issue. Now, some of y'all be like, correct? What you mean? He should just be gone. Listen, the reality is that there are many women who have had a man cheat on them and they're still with that man, okay? And they're still hoping things will turn around. And I'm not saying a cheater is once a cheater, always a cheater. I don't believe that. But I do believe that when you have a situation where, because I was recently approached a month ago by a woman, I was out and about. But anyways, she was dating a man. In her story, I won't get into all the details. Bottom line is, since they've been official, he's cheated repeatedly, okay? And to me, it's one thing for there to have been one, I know you're not gonna like the word mistake, but one mishap, one bad decision. And if we get to the root of it, maybe something can be fixed here. That's a whole different discussion. I'm not gonna get to that. But when there's a clear pattern, is what I'm getting at, then this is a dead-end relationship. This is not gonna, so even if he marries you, you won't be happy because he's gonna still be cheating on you. And that's not what you want in your relationship. So with that said, confident women don't accept dead-end relationships. And one of the biggest reasons why women end up not getting what they deserve in life and relationships is getting caught up in dead-end relationships. And I'm gonna give you one more example of a dead end relationship. Staying with a man that, because let's just say it's a guy, he's doing nothing wrong. He's a good guy. But from the very beginning, I'm talking about from the very beginning of getting to know him, you knew deep in your heart, this was not it. He is not the guy. For whatever the reason is, he's just not the guy for you. And you still proceed with him. That is a dead end relationship. And a perfect example or explanation as to why that shows a lack of confidence is because typically the woman who still decides to be with the man who deep inside she feels is not that guy is because she doesn't have the confidence to believe better exists. She doesn't have the confidence to believe that she will receive what is best for her. She thinks she has to accept this and settle for this man because this is the best option available. And there could be other reasons. She's afraid to be alone. She's already invested some time and energy. She doesn't want to start over. There's various reasons, but they all speak to a lack of confidence. Okay? And there was this book. I've mentioned this book so many times, and Lord forgive me, I keep forgetting the title of the book. But the bottom line is, the book surveys, it evaluates what increases the chances of a woman who wants marriage getting married. And one of the things on there was they don't remain in dead-end relationships. Now, here's one of the caveat, or here's one of the things they mentioned about to help you avoid a dead-end relationship is you got to have an internal deadline. All right? Because again, there's so many different reasons why a woman may entertain a situation much longer than she should. And again, for me, this is a no judgment zone. I ain't judging y'all. I'm trying to help and pour love and guidance and assistance into you. So I understand that no matter how much you're a good woman, no matter how much you even know about some of this stuff, it's still possible for a woman, for various reasons, to find herself caught up in the wrong situation. But if you don't have an internal deadline of when enough is enough, or when things need to proceed to the next level, then what should have ended in a year or 6 months or 2 years can end up turning into 5 years, 7 years, 10 years with a man who is not best for you, with a man who is unwilling to give you what you need. And how many times, I'm going to keep using the example of marriage, how many times have we seen a situation where a woman hangs on to a man, let's say 7 years, he never marries her, has every excuse in the book. Finally, she leaves him. Thank God. She finally lets go. 6 months later, this man's engaged. And it just highlights how, this was just a dead-end relationship. And it shows how also there are tons of men who, yes, it's not that they don't want to or they're not open to marriage, but it may not be with you. Okay? And that's not something you should take in this negative way, because the reality is deep inside you knew they weren't for you anyway. Deep inside you knew you were trying to hold on to something that really wasn't there. All right? And so thank God. For some of y'all, thank God he didn't marry you, because you would have been more miserable after the fact. All right? And you needed him to drag his feet to hopefully finally wake up. But I want you to wake up much earlier than the 7 years or however long. And if you're in it right now, I want you to wake up right now. Because again, remaining in a dead-end relationship is just not to your benefit. All right, so we got a few more to go before we wrap this up. But another thing confident women do in relationships is they take accountability. All right? Now, one of the biggest complaints that you'll hear on the internet from men is that women are allergic to accountability, that the average woman does not know how to accept it, okay? And if we're being real with each other, there's a lot of truth to this, all right? A lot of women, and I know some of y'all are saying, but these men don't take accountability. I'm not dismissing that, okay? But let's stay focused on the women, because this is about what a confident woman does. There's a lot of women who struggle with taking accountability. And I believe one of the reasons that a lot of women struggle with it is because it's almost like by accepting the mistake, they then internalize the mistake, and they dwell on it longer. They beat themselves up more. And so because of that, they tend to then reject even getting to that point. So basically, if I don't acknowledge and accept and own up to this, then I don't fall into that place of now questioning myself or feeling less than and things of that nature. And I want you to understand that, listen, taking accountability does not make you less than. Accepting that you've made mistakes in certain places is a great thing. It's a healthy thing. It's an empowering thing, because in doing that, you can now create better results for yourself. You know, the reality is that if we're not getting the results we want in life, then there's probably something that we need to do differently. Now, of course, I'm not saying, you know, people don't have things that are outside of their control happen to them. I'm not saying that some people are just up against a wall, but there's always an adjustment we can make to see some kind of progress or improvement if we're willing to accept that. But if we don't, we stay stuck, we stay stagnant, we don't see things change for the better at all. And when it comes to relationships, well, think about that man. Like I've seen situations, married couples, where they go to counseling, and the goal is supposed to be how the both can come together and create more harmony. But the woman in the session is making it all about the man and what the man does wrong. And then when he brings up his concerns and his issues, she has a deflection for everything. Never is it, okay, I hear you, I can work on that, or anything. It's putting it back to him. And as a woman, you have to be honest with yourself if you're someone who does that a lot. All right. And you got to be able to recognize that, no, if you want any situation, forget just men, family relationships, work, whatever, learning how to take accountability is a big part of it. And a confident person, a secure person, can take that accountability because they know it doesn't define them. The mistake, the issue, the concern. No, acknowledging it empowers them and it allows them to move forward in a better direction. So, taking accountability, definitely a thing confident women do. All right, so I hope you're still with me. And now another thing that confident women do in relationships is they practice self-care, okay? So a lot of women, and this kind of goes with the losing yourself in a relationship, a lot of women are so concerned about keeping that man or making other people happy that they end up neglecting themselves in the process. And again, part of their obsession with trying to keep this person happy to the detriment of themselves, because there's nothing wrong with wanting to pour into your partner. That's what we want. That's healthy. But when you're crossing the line of neglecting self, that's where it's unhealthy. That's where it's a problem. And many women cross that line because they're more afraid to lose the man than they're afraid to lose themselves. And that's a very bad place to be, okay? And in trying to accommodate him, or again, it's not just him, kids, family, friends, whoever, they lose sight of what's really important, and that is pouring into themselves. Not in a selfish way, not in a self-centered way, in a way that shows self-love, in a way that allows you to actually show up even better for others when necessary. It's like if you don't take care of you, if you're not good to you, you won't be able to be good to them. You won't be able to sustain whatever you're doing for anyone else, for that man, whoever. You're not going to be able to sustain it because in the process of not taking care of yourself, you're getting drained, you're getting depleted. It's going to run you into the ground, and that stress is killing you. Okay? And it's hitting my spirit, so I feel the need to mention it. There's a lot of women who have developed a lot of medical issues because of the emotional stress they take on. I'm just going to make this point. I am not a doctor, so, this is just sharing my perspective and what I've seen. It doesn't mean I'm 100% accurate, so you can do your own research. However, I've seen many situations where women have developed, let's say, breast cancer as an example. And of course, we understand that there's tons of things in the world today that can contribute to cancer. But in these specific situations, what I have seen is these could be women who are eating very well, exercising. They're doing a lot of things on the surface that you would think would keep a person very healthy. But what I've seen as the common denominator in all these situations is toxic relationships. What I've seen is unhealed trauma. What I've seen is emotional stress. And I believe it is that stress that has triggered certain things in their body that has created or contributed to the cancers and to other ailments they are experiencing. So self-care is extremely important for you. And I want to stress the fact of the limiting stress in general. Stress is a killer. You got to find ways to create more peace around. I'm always, in many videos, I talk about, being a man's peace. But I say, if you're going to be a man's peace, you have to be peace within yourself first, or create peace within yourself first. So be mindful of even your home environment. For some people, it could be as simple as adding color in your home could help create a different vibe and energy that lowers the stress. Adding some plants or some nice trinkets or pictures, like little different things. The music you're playing in the house, the TV, whatever you're consuming throughout the day, just be very mindful and aware of, is what I'm taking in contributing to my peace or contributing to my stress? All right. And I just have to say, like, even me recently, I had to accept I need to limit my exposure to the internet because so many things were pissing me off. Like, so much was putting me in a negative mindset. And I was like, yo, I just need to stop looking. Like, this is pointless. Why am I doing this to myself? I'm done. Like, I really just cut back on internet exposure significantly. And I've felt so much better after doing it. So be mindful of that. Limit the stress, but practicing self-care is definitely something a confident woman does. All right, and now another thing that a confident woman does in a relationship is she isn't afraid to walk away from it. All right. So again, so many women have found themselves experiencing unhealthy attachments to men. So many women have found themselves even feeling trapped. And I stress the word feeling trapped because I never want you to think and believe you actually are trapped. All right. There is a way out. I understand that some situations are much more delicate than others, but there is a way out. And I want you to understand and know that. But I get how you can feel like you are stuck and can't go anywhere. And sometimes some of it stems from, again, that lack of confidence to walk away, whether that's because you're afraid to be alone, whether that's you're afraid to start all over. It could be because you don't believe anything better is out there. It could be for some women, you fought so long to defend this relationship to family and friends who were saying they don't like this guy, they don't like this situation, and you don't want to have to walk in what you feel is the shame of acknowledging I was wrong and I should have let go of this guy a long time ago. All right. Some of you don't even, nothing hit my spirit, so I have to mention it. I've seen situations where women, the stigma of divorce kept them in the relationship, even though nothing within them wanted to be there. All right. Like, they were completely done with the man. It was completely unhealthy, unfixable situation. It was a wrap. And even though there was I'm thinking about one situation right now where there was an acceptance of divorce in the sense of we're not, basically separation. We're not going to live together. We're not dealing with each other, right? But she could not bring herself to go to the courthouse and file or to sign off on the paperwork because it was the stigma of having a divorce over her head, so to speak, that she was struggling to deal with. Now, thankfully, eventually she was able to conquer that fear and do what needs to be done. But again, there's so many things that keep women holding on or being unwilling or unable to walk away. And I always say it starts with healing. Healing is always the key to strengthen your ability to not get caught up in these situations or to tap into the strength you already possess to walk away from these situations, because you cannot be afraid to walk away. And something that I want you to understand is, you know, if your partner thinks that no matter what they do, you will not leave them, you lost. That is not the place to be. A partner should only believe that as long as they're making an effort to do their part, show up the way they need to show up, that you are going to be willing to work with them and keep this thing going and stay with them. That's good. That's healthy, because they understand they have to do their part in the situation. But when this person thinks, this man thinks he can do whatever and you're not leaving, it's downhill from there. It's downhill from there, because there has to be consequences. At the end of the day, you don't pay your mortgage, you're going to lose your house. You don't show up to work on time, you're going to lose your job. If you don't accept certain things, you don't make it to heaven, okay? And so there's a consequence to everything, but somehow we've allowed ourselves to believe that our relationship should be inconsequential. That's the wrong word, I think. It should be without consequence. It should be without consequence. And it's like, yo, that's not the way to do it. So you cannot be afraid to walk away. And you got to understand that if this situation is not for you, then better exists. If one door closes, another door will open, and that other door will be bigger and better. And I just have to add this real quick, especially coming off talking about walking away and closing doors. Always pray. Always talk to God. And you know, one of the big reasons why I have to always like bring up God and remind y'all to just talk to God is, one, that's literally my belief system, as far as like, I don't make moves without talking to God first. I pray about everything, okay? But I also understand that sometimes we can be in an emotional place, and if we just react based off our emotions, it can get us in trouble, okay? And it doesn't mean that it may not be ultimately the right thing to do, but I don't want you to just react. Like, I don't want you to just watch this video and be like, you know what? That's right. I need to walk away. It's time to walk away. And that may be what you need to do ultimately, but I still would feel much better for those who are believers, because I understand and respect not everybody has that belief system. Pray, talk to God, get confirmation with Him of what you need to do. Let Him guide you through it. Because listen, there's going to be some situations that may look bad, but are actually fixable. Okay? There's going to be some situations that look good, but are actually a dead end. God can see beyond what we can process in front of us. That's why you want to include God's guidance. That's why we don't lean on our understanding, we lean on His. Because that will ensure, that you make what is the best decision, despite what other people might think. Because again, a lot of times what God wants you to do will not align with what other people are telling you you should do. But you gotta learn to lean on God and trust He knows what's best. Thank you for watching this video. I pray it was helpful to you. Be sure to watch this one over here on Men Will Respect You when they see these 5 things. These are the things that say, I value you. These are the things that you deserve as a woman and should not settle for anything less. And so